He gives good direction with equality. I am telling you, we're really blessed to have her speak tonight. And she is certainly Grace's best friend in the program or out of the program, and has just been with Sue and I for years and years and years. And I know any of you all who know Annette, and certainly after she speaks, will feel the same that we do. So I'd like to welcome Annette Nelson to tell us all about it.
Hi, I didn't know whether to get up or whether to run out the door. I don't know whether I'm the Annette he was talking about or not. But my name is Annette Nelson, and I'm very grateful recovered alcoholic. And by the grace of a loving God in this wonderful program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink or a mood-altering drug since June the 13th, 1957. Praise God. And when you find out who I was, you'll know what a miracle that really is. You know, a lot of people say there are no miracles today. I want you to just look around this room, and in every face, you're going to see a miracle, because there's not a one of us here tonight who would be sober or halfway sane if it had not been a miracle in our lives. I could give the shortest talk in history, but if I did, I would probably be mobbed by a lot of these good people who have seen my sweet and charming side. I could say that I lived in hell with alcohol for many years. I found this program, and now I am living in a little corner of heaven. And that really sums it all. But this program tells us to tell a little bit about our history in drinking. Well, mine, as I said, was absolute hell. But I want you to know that you are looking at one of the most religious drunks that you will ever have the privilege of seeing. Now, I belonged to one of the biggest Methodist churches in the city of Tampa. And I not only belonged, but I practically ran it. If you don't believe that, you could ask Lee Pearson. He was a youth director when I was in my prime drinking days, but I managed to keep it from him until many years later when I was camp counselor across the road here. So this plot of ground is very, very special to me, both in drinking days when I had to come over there and stay with a bunch of teenagers and try to tell them all about God and how good he was and this kind of stuff. And all the time I was dying for a drink. I would go to Sunday school and church every Sunday morning. My children would go. Half the time my hat may be on wrong side out or upside down and the gloves on the wrong hand. You better believe I was there. Songbook was there just to help me steady my hands, you know, a little. But I was in that church. Later on, the minister in that church is the one who sent me to Alcoholics Anonymous. I hated this program with an absolute venom. I hated everybody in it. I didn't drink coffee, and if I had, I would have stayed and drank coffee with y'all. I'd have gone down the street and had my coffee. So, miracle, yes, I really am. More than that, I'm a miracle because God gave me 5 chances to come back to this program. I'm not proud to stand up here and say that it took me 5 times to come back and pick up a white chip, but it did. And I'll tell you why it did, and maybe it will prevent y'all from having to do the same thing. I came in here not believing that I was an alcoholic. I came in here to get the law off of my fanny. I had been picked up for DUI. My children had been taken away from me and placed in a children's home. And that's why I came to this program the first time. And needless to say, it didn't work. I came with a chip on my shoulder, with a hate in my heart. Now, I had heard about Alcoholics Anonymous 3 or 4 years before this happened. And I had heard about AA at a Baptist Sunday school class. Now, if any of y'all in here are Baptist, you will say that can't happen. Well, it did in the state of North Carolina. This precious young woman came and really gave an AA talk. She told what she was, what had happened to her, and that she had come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is what God was doing in her life. Well, I sat there and I thought, my God, I've been going to church all my life. I know all about God. And I know that woman has, but I'll be darned if I'll ever get up and say things like she is saying right now. But I had to talk to her. So after the Sunday school class was over, there were other people getting up and telling her how much they appreciated her coming to the class. And I, of course, went up and put on this silly grin, a hangover grin. Have y'all ever had one of those? And I told her how much I appreciated and how much I admired her for standing up and telling what had happened in her life. And I said, I sure wouldn't like to talk to y'all because I think my husband has a drinking problem. I've thought so many times since then, I wonder what I would do if somebody in the Sunday school class would tell me that I am probably so brazen and so straightforward. I would say, who are you kidding, honey? But this precious thing said, oh, I'd be glad to come and talk with you. I'll come tomorrow. I said, oh, God, no, don't come tomorrow because my husband's in town. And she said, well, there is a meeting, an AA meeting, in one of the people's homes here Wednesday night. Could I come by and pick you up? And I told her, yes, that I would like to go. Well, let me tell you right now, we might hear some gory stories in AA now, but back then, didn't nobody but Skid Row bums come to this program. I mean, they were gutter drinkers. And I heard more horrible talk that scared the daylights out of me. My God, everybody there had been in jail 4 or 5 times. They'd hocked their furniture, they'd beat their wives, they'd beat their husbands, and beat their kids. And I just looked around and I said, oh my God, I'm not that bad. And that's how much impression that meeting had on me that night. I'm sure that they must have said, you don't have to go this far. And I'm sure that they said something about sponsorships and 12 steps and this kind of stuff. All I wanted to hear was the things I wasn't. But I didn't hear that little 3-letter word, yes. So I won't tell y'all now, listen to the yet word. If all of these things haven't happened to you, just add that little word yet. Because I promise you, and I can tell you from experience, if they haven't happened yet, and you continue to drink, they sure will. And it ain't funny. If you think it's bad to come in and take a white chip when you think you're the queen of the ball or the king of the hill, and you're humiliated when you come up here and take a white chip, forget it. You don't know the word humiliation. Wait until you have to drag yourself up the 5th time. I hate to admit that I was that stupid and that self-centered, egotistical witch that I was, and those things are true, except my sponsor didn't call me a witch. She spelled it with a B. And if you think you've been humiliated and it was hard the first time, don't try it again. And I'll tell you exactly how you don't have to do it. Come in here with an open mind. Get yourself a sponsor. And I can't stress that enough. I don't think we hear that enough anymore. I've had 2 human sponsors, and I've outlived both of them. And it wasn't because I was that bad or that mean. They were just older than I was. So after losing the second one, I decided that Jesus Christ is my sponsor. and Grace Snyder, many years since that day that I chose that Jesus is my sponsor. Grace Snyder is my sponsor. She is my sponsor. She is my sister. She is the best friend I've ever had in my life. And I'm so excited tonight that all I can do is cry when I even hear her name. But I know that God has performed a miracle in her life and that she will be with us at our next retreat. I cried and prayed and walked the floor until 2 o'clock in the morning when I had the word that she had had to have emergency surgery. And when I finally thought, I'm beating myself to death with something I have no control over. I can't do anything about this. And I just opened my fist and I said, God, I release Grace Snyder to you. If you need her and you want her tonight, please take her. And that is the only way I could get any peace. But I do miss her. I know we all miss her because the retreat will never be the same without her. But I thank God for all you young people who have come after Grace and Clarence, who have grasped this program. You know what it's all about, and you know the importance of these retreats. These retreats are the most important thing in my life. Now, I go to church now, but I'll tell you one thing, I go for an entirely different reason. I don't go for everybody to say, well, Annette will do it, whatever it is, Annette will do it. Teach Sunday school, be a camp counselor, be a scout leader, anything. Why? Because I wanted them to know what a wonderful person they had in their midst. And I would go home from all of these occasions and I would tell you what I would become, just what my sponsor called me. she knew the words to say. But these retreats are the most important things in my life. I was fortunate enough to help Clarence start the first one at Camp Florida. And I have missed 1.5. Now, I missed the one because I was sick, and the second one is because I am still a Madam Full Charge. My daughter-in-law had my first grandchild, and I knew she couldn't do this without my help. So, Saturday night at the bonfire and the wiener roast, I waved goodbye to all the retreaters, and I went to help deliver my first grandchild. So, that's how much these retreats mean to me, and I hope and pray God that every one of you get that same love and that same yearning and desire to come to these retreats, not only for your own sake, but for those that you will come in contact with that you will be sponsoring. We all come here in the beginning with a bunch of troubles, a bunch of sadness, with a sack of potatoes on our shoulder. But I beg you, don't go home with them because they will rot and they will stink. I don't care what your problem is that you're bringing to this retreat. You can find somebody in this group who will show you how to put that sack down. Don't go home with the same burdens, the same questions, and the same thoughts that you had in your head when you drove on this property. Get rid of it and go home as free as a bird. When I leave this retreat, I don't think I even need my automobile. I think I can just say, and be super lady. But anything that you need in this program is here to be gotten this weekend. Try to attend all the meetings that you can. Talk with all of the people that you can, and God will really direct you to the right. He knows where I'm going through. Just let God direct you who to go to with that particular problem that you got. We've got a chance tomorrow afternoon to go through the steps as just the same manner that the first 100 people in this program went through. And you're going to hear an awful lot about God. You're going to hear Jesus Christ. Don't let it frighten you. This big book came straight from the Bible. That is the only big book they had for a long time when they first started meeting. So whether you like it or whether you don't, whether you think I'm a kook or whether you don't, that is immaterial. Facts are facts, and this is a fact. Our big book came straight from the Bible. We're not going to beat you over the head with the Bible, but we're going to let you know that if you want to be happy, joyous, and free, this is the only way to do it. Don't do. I thank God that this program is one with a swinging door. If you do go out and you have problems, that door is open to you just the same as it was when you first came in. But let me tell you something right now. Every time you go out, it gets worse. If you think it was bad when you first came in, forget it. Scratch that off. It gets worse every time. And all of the things that had not happened will happen. I can't stress that enough. And those of us who have come in and not accepted this program and waltzed around it, we can tell you what hell it is. And we are the most fortunate people in the whole wide world because God was good enough to save me the first time, and I went back out. I did this 5 times, and I advise you, please, please don't try it because it doesn't work. I tried everything in the world except surrender. And until we take this first step and totally surrender to this program of Alcoholics Anonymous and admit it and accept it, then we may as well just go out and stay out until we're ready to do it. But if you do have trouble and you come back, as Lee said, the door is open again for you. And we don't find this in the churches. This is by far the greatest thing that God could have ever designed. And no human mind could have done it, folks. God had to design this program for poor, down, and out drunks like all of us. So we could understand it. We could be loved into this. And as Steve said, sometimes it takes a little persuasion. And we have to be able to give some tough love, too. Of course, I think my sponsor went overboard on that. And all of well, most of the people 34 years ago, I'll tell you, they would just let you know, do you want what we got? And if you say yes, and you say, are you willing to go to any length, you darn well better mean it because they saw that you did. I think sometimes we're a little lenient with people and we say, we take them to meetings, go by and pick them up for weeks and months and this kind of stuff, trying to get them to go to a meeting, you know. Unfortunately, this program is not for people who need it. This program is for people who want it. And we got to want it more than anything else in this world before we ever really get what is here in this program to be gotten. I am so fortunate to have known Clarence and Harold Hill and a lot of the old timers. It breaks my heart sometimes to come to these retreats and think that you people don't have a chance to meet those wonderful, wonderful people that started this and to see some of the battles that we had when we started. Because there were battles, I'll tell you. We were called Jesus freaks and fanatics and everything else. And you will be called that too. We ask you to take what you've gotten here and go back to your groups and share it. But let me warn you, please, don't go in there with your Bible and beat them over the head and say, you will accept this or you're not going to stay sober. Because they will run from you like you are a leper. Go home with that silly grin on your face that you're bound to get here at this program, this weekend. Go with that silly grin on your face, and then somebody is going to say, what in the world has happened to you? You got them right there. Because they asked the question, and then you can say, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. I met the new manager that most people still call the new manager. I found God at the retreat. And then they have no comeback at you because they asked the question and you just have enough courage to say, I'm glad you asked. And I hope that I don't see a person leave this campground Sunday afternoon without that silly grin. You can't wipe it off. You can't wash it off. It's there, and it's real. And when you go back to your group and they see you smiling when you left, grumbling and down in the mouth and the poor me's, they'll know something happened. So for goodness sake, tell them, and tell them where you got it. This is the way we sell these retreats. We sell these retreats by newcomers who come and find what is here to give you a brand new life, and then you go back. And you're the ambassadors then to bring more new people. And how many did we have this time? Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? Let's give them all a few. That is great. And I hope when you've been sober 34 years that all of you will still keep coming back. And you're going to see me for a lot more years, but whether you like it or not. Because as long as I am alive and close enough to get here to this retreat, I'll guarantee you this is where I will be. I had a horrible, horrible time, as I've already told you, with trying to get sober. And I thought I was a pretty smart cookie. There wasn't many things that I couldn't do. But this is one thing that had me beat from the word go. The word go. The first drink that I took, I know that I was an alcoholic then. I was an alcoholic before then, but it just was not apparent. And I'm not going to say that I didn't have fun with drinking when I first started, because I did. That would be a lie if I said I never had any fun drinking. Sure I did. Making an ass of myself and being the life of the party and the loudest one there and this kind of thing. But you know what? I soon learned after being in this program, I didn't have to have a drink to be all that. I would have been that anyhow. Because I was young, I was happy, I wanted a good time, I was a good dancer. So why not enjoy all the stuff? But no, because I thought it was smart and real cheap, to pick up a drink and drink with the girls and the guys and this kind of stuff. But oh my dear God, if I had known what was coming, if that little drink that I thought was such fun would turn on me and become my killer, I don't believe I'd ever picked up the first one. But we can't tell anybody that. We have to learn through experience. So I did have fun with drinking for many years. My husband was a heavy drinker. We had fun together until that wonderful day that booze turned on me and I became an alcoholic. And I have 3 of the most wonderful children that God ever let one woman have. I have 1 son and 2 daughters. And I thank God that none of them ever got in trouble with booze or with drugs. Now that is a miracle too. I love all my children, and my oldest child is almost as much my sponsor as Grace is. And she took some bad habits from her mother, such as being very brutally frank with you. And when I came into this program and had grasped this program, was trying to live this program, my ex-husband was still drinking very heavily. And we're not to say anybody was an alcoholic or he isn't, but I knew he was an alcoholic or something had happened to him. But he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. He would go to work, come home, be half stoned when he got there, get in his recliner and look at the boob tube. He had been doing that for years, but this one particular night, I threw an absolute living fit. And some of y'all won't know what I'm talking about. I think you Al-Anons know darn well what I'm talking about. I threw a fit. I raved and ranted and kicked the dog and cursed the children and had a fit. And my oldest daughter, who was 16, I think, grabbed me by the shoulders and turned me around and looked me straight down. She said, "Mother, I don't understand you." She said, "You have a program to learn how to live, and you've been doing that real well. What in the world has happened to you?" She said, "You're acting like a crazy person. Dad's not doing a thing." except his usual nightly thing. He's not bothering us, but you're going to drive us crazy. I think you need to go to Al-Anon. Oh, God. And it was fortunate, I guess, that I had some very dear friends who were in Al-Anon, but they were as outspoken as I was. So when I walked in that door that night, 3 of them greeted me with, "Hey, we're glad to have you, but you may know all there is to know about Alcoholics Anonymous, but you don't know a damn thing about Al-Anon. So you sit in that chair, shut your mouth, and listen." That's good, tough love. That's good, tough love. I learned an awful lot in Al-Anon, and today I think as much of the Al-Anon program as I do the AA program. You know, this is an illness that strikes the whole family. Not just the alcoholic is sick, but so many, many times the Al-Anon is a lot sicker. And I know why. It's because we know better than to lie and to put up with all the stuff that we put up with. And we have to stay sober during all this. The alcoholic can say, "Oh, you know, the heck with you," and go get a bottle and pass out. We don't have to listen to it. But I love the Al-Anon program. I love the Alateen program. And if there's anybody here tonight who has teenagers and you have not at least introduced them to the Alateen program, I would highly suggest that you do that. You know, these kids didn't ask to be born into an alcoholic family. And we hear so much this day and time about kids of alcoholic parents and dysfunctional families and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you right now, yeah, it's a dysfunctional family, but there's a lot of so-called normies out there that have that kind of family. But I'll also tell you some good news. There's only one answer to that, and that is God Almighty that we find in this program. And when it says God as I understand him, I don't think that's what it says. I think the big book says, when it says we are 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless, helpless situation. I think that's what it says. And we don't have to stay in this. These kids didn't ask to be brought into this. And the only way that they're going to get out of it at all is for us to be honest with them, let them know what happened. I know some people who've been in this program for 12 and 15 years that hid their being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous from their children, all of the children's teenage lives. And I think this is one of the saddest things I've ever seen. My God, we all got sick together. Let's all get well together. And we don't do this by preaching at them. We do it by walking our talk. If we're not going to walk it, let's don't talk it. And we can be nice and loving and kind to all of these people when we go to AA meetings, Al-Anon meetings, and Alateen meetings. And when we get home, we still be tired. Don't do it. I beg you not to do it. But neither can we push just because we have found a new manager for our lives. Don't think that we can get that spouse and overnight tell them that this is the way they've got to go. It'll scare them bad enough, and I'll tell you one way to get them in. Just keep praying for them. And if it's meant to be, then God will do it. If it isn't, well, then you'll be better off. My husband left me after a marriage of 32 years and these 3 wonderful children. Thank God they were all grown and out of school and out of the house when he decided to leave me. But I had been sober 18 years when he decided. And I want to tell you, folks, it was not easy. It was not easy, but I thank God that I did not one time think of taking a drink. I love this man today. He is married. I love this man today. I thank God for him because he is the father of my 3 precious children. But I thank God he's in his shoes and I'm in mine because I am the winner. One of the greatest lessons that I ever learned was from Hal Hill, the one who wrote this book. Of course, he said a lot of things at that time that I thought he had really flipped out. He had drank too long. But I have yet to find one thing that the man ever told me that was not the absolute positive truth. It was right after Freddie had left me, and he was speaking in Bradenton at a Christian retreat. And I had taken a whole bunch of gals there. I just thought that he was the greatest person in the world. So anytime he came near Tampa, I got a carload of gals and hauled them down to listen to Hal. But Hal was kind of like, maybe I got some of this roughness, frankness from that guy. But don't dare ask him a question unless you want to hear the honest to God truth. It ain't going to be what you want to hear. It's the truth. So Freddie had just left, and I went down, and Hal came up, and he said, "How you doing, honey?" And I said, "I'm surviving. I'm getting by." And he looked at me, and he said, "Well, big deal." And I thought, oh, you son of a gun. No more sympathy than that. If he hadn't been so tall, I'd have poked him in the nose. But he said, "Have you thanked God for this?" And I would almost as soon curse in front of Jesus as I would Hal. I thought that much of that man. And before I knew what came out of my mouth, I said, "Hell no, I haven't, and that's not all, Buster. I don't intend to. Because I am not a hypocrite. No, I don't thank God for this." And he said, "Well, Thessalonians, I don't know what verse it is, said, praise God in everything." I said, "I'll have you know that I might be a lot of things, but I'm not a hypocrite." He said, "Okay, go home just the way you came here. Stay on your pity pot and die with the plum disease. Poor little old me." But he said, "If you will do what I say, you're going to be an overcomer." He said, "In your prayers, thank God for the situation that you're in." So I wanted God to be sure and know that I was not a hypocrite. Now, I have to tell him a lot of things. He doesn't know it all. So I would start off by saying, "God, I'm not a hypocrite, and you know I'm not a hypocrite, and you know I don't mean this. But Hal Hill told me to thank God for the situation that I'm in right now, so I'm thanking you." And I did that about 3 days. And then I thought, well, he ought to know by now I'm not a hypocrite because I done told him enough. So I kind of dropped that a little bit, and I said, "God, I really don't understand this, but I thank you anyhow." And at the 7th day that I did this, I was actually able to raise my hand and say, "God, I will never understand this, but I praise you in everything that's happening in my life." And that is the day that the hurt, the bitterness, the wanting to kill left me, and I have never had it since. I am able to pray for this man, pray for his wife, and still thank God for the times that I had with Fred. He's still drinking. I still pray for him to have some good years. This program will do anything for you kids. I don't care how bad you hate your mama, your daddy, your kids, anything, your job. All we have to do is be obedient. And we have a roadmap set in front of us in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. But we can't scratch through them and say, "Well, this one doesn't apply to me." Got news for you. Every one of them apply to us. But the good news is that after we once take these steps and mean it sincerely, then when we come to the 12th step, we don't ever have to go back to any of them except step 10. And that is continue to take personal inventory. And that means every day. God, did I do something today that harmed somebody? If I did, please let me be willing to make amends. And I can guarantee you, kids, if you'll do that to the best of your ability, then you won't ever have to take another drink so long as you live. Now that's good news, isn't it? And how God could love somebody as sorry and as big a hypocrite as Annette Nelson, and to give me the life that I have had for 34 years is beyond anything in this understand him. I don't understand him. I can't possibly understand him. But I know one thing, if I will halfway do what this big book that comes from the big book, the Bible, if I will just give it the best I can for the day, then I'm guaranteed for a better tomorrow. No matter what happens to us, if we can be grateful for what we got, God's going to give